Hey everybody, this is Perch. Here's a viewer mail. This is an interesting challenge. It says, "Hey Perch, I like your show. I hate your commenters. I hate your commenters. Come on, they're not that bad. Come on, come on, right? Okay. I hate your commenters. Jesus, way to go in hot. Like this is like in wrestling when a heel comes out and they're like, "Hey, it's great to be in Detroit, where everything sucks and the people are inbred." Like you go for that cheap heat right out the gate. I always liked what I loved is, and it was where Randy Orton was good for a period of time, where he would come out and he would do, he was clearly going for cheap heat. This was very early in his career, and but he would bait the audience. The audience knew it was coming. They knew that Randy Orton was about to turn around and call them a bunch of hillbillies or whatever. But he would string it out. He's like, "Hey, I came into this town. I was expecting it was going to suck, but actually, it was pretty awesome. It was amazing food. It was great. It was a good time, and I wound up having a good time. And that's why I'm here to say I'm glad. I'm glad that we came to Chicago." And it turned like they were not in Chicago. They were in like New Jersey or something. It's like you would string it along. Anyway, hate your commenters. Okay, back to this mail. Uh, I noticed that a lot of comics YouTube, and includes people that comment on your videos, I'm sorry to say, are extremely unfair when it comes to criticism. They will take a panel in a comic book, they'll zoom in, and the panel will look really weird. Well, of course it's going to look really weird because you zoomed in. The panel isn't meant to be viewed that way. Or it's people who are talking about Mags Visaggio or Vita Ayala like either of those two people are making comics anymore. Well, Megs is kind of doing sort of ish comics, kind of. Vita's got that Double Trouble book that is from forever ago. Anyway, sure, let's like Mariko Tamaki. Yeah, why not? But okay, but before I go on with the rest of the mail, the point is taken. Look, I mean, if we're gonna be fair, and I know it bugs you guys, some of you, when I say this, but it is fair is fair. We should be fair. Some of the comics criticism is absolutely misleading. I think the zooming in on the panel thing is an issue. Like in particular, if you take a comic page and you've got like a panel of art, it's down in the bottom corner. It's like a small piece. And I've done jokes on this, by the way, where I've taken panels and I've shown the zoomed in panels, like, holy shit, what happened here? This is why you don't zoom in on a panel. I they look weird. They often look weird. But to be fair, you can go to almost any piece of art from any era, and you could pick Jim Lee, you could pick Mark Silvestri, you could pick Rob Liefeld, you could pick John Byrne, you could pick Walt Simonson, you could pick any legend. And if you take a character in their stuff that's way in the background in a big collage of characters in an image, and you blow that one up, that one tiny little character that's not fully detailed rendered because they're drawn like tiny in the page, they'll look really strange. Because the art, again, was not meant to be looked at by itself in like that. So I think there is a lot of that goes on, and people will post that stuff and go, look at how comic art sucks these days. It's like, well, there's plenty of examples of actual shit comic art that is, full page, that is there's no excuse for. But if you're taking like one tiny little piece of art on a page and you're making that the entire focal point, it's like, look, there's not even really a nose. There's just like a suggestion of a face. It's like, well, yeah, because it was a background character, no different than any other artist has done. And I'm serious. Go to a Jim Lee comic from the 90s. Pick one of those X-Men Wildcats. Pick one of his books that were really huge. And then thumb through the pages until you find, one panel where there's somebody in the distant background, like Rogan Gambit or hanging out at a baseball game. And then somewhere like way back in the back, he's drawn like Jean Grey, like standing on third base. And then just take a picture of Jean Grey, this tiny little image, and then just on your phone, then just blow it up to where it's really big. It'll look ridiculous. And so that's definitely true. I think there's comic criticism in this desire to kind of leap on and pile on comics where, you basically shit on something and it's, you're taking it out of context. To the other point, I've made this on the channel many times before. I mean, in all honesty, if you're a comic channel and you're complaining about Vita's influence in the industry, you're dealing with very old information. Vita clearly has zero impact on the industry. Now, Vita's not going to be gone from comics forever, but there isn't a current Vita comic out. And so if if the premise is that Vita is somehow dominating comics, that clearly not, by just sheer nature of the comics aren't coming out. Now, again, there's plenty of bozos who are writing comics this month or next month or whatever you happen to be listening to this. But, you need to do that extra little bit of work and point out some of those people. The challenge that you have is that some of these names are like internet fuel. Vita is one. Mags is another. Dan Slott is one. Bendis, Tom King. I'm trying to think of the big internet hate people. And then of course you got your, Heidi McDonald is probably in there. Heather Antos. The woman at Marvel that everybody has forgotten exists. Her. So there's those names equal extra hits. They just do, because people are like, either they like those writers, they hate those writers, but they know there's a lot of heat, buzz around those writers, so everybody piles on. So I mean that's just. But in all fairness, there's plenty of shitty comic writers out this month. You just need to do that extra bit of work to find them. But if you do find them and you post a video up on it, these names are unknown. So chances are nobody's going to know this. But this is where, if you're one of the bigger YouTubers, if you've got a channel with like 100,000, 200,000 subs, then I think you have a responsibility to seek out those new shitty writers and give the rest of the channels a little benefit, a little boost of, different people that they can crap on. So, just saying, it would be nice. Sorry, let's conclude this mail. Yeah. Anyway, I'm curious to what you think of this, about people who complain about comics but clearly haven't read the comics or are just looking for trouble. Do you think they add any value to anything, or are they just an annoyance dragging everything back? Curious to hear your thoughts. Well, I guess you could say that people who have made a living off of just shitting on comics constantly, day in, day out, yeah, I mean, they're not helping. I don't know that they're, I mean, look, are they hurting comics? I tend to think not, because the people who are listening to those channels day in and day out are also not buying comics. It's not like, I want to just throw this scenario out to you. And if you're one of the people who are like, the CG comic channels are ruining the industry, let me put it to you this way. The audience for one of those channels is not, faithfully running down to the store to buy, Danny Lore's Daughter of Blade comic. They're not doing that. If anybody in that group is buying that comic, it's so that they can do some kind of hate roast on it. But most people are in that group are complaining about it, but they're not actually buying it. And that's annoying. Totally annoying. It's if you're the creator of one of those comics, or you happen to like it or whatever, you may think that's your enemy, but the reality is it's not. Because it's not like there's somebody who's listening to one of those channels who's like, I'll go down to the comic store and buy me a Daughter of Blade comic book. Can't wait to read that Daughter of Blade by Danny Lore. Danny Lore is an amazing writer, I'm very excited to read this Danny Lore comic. Wait a minute, while I'm traveling to my comic shop destination, my abode in the metro city of peace and tranquility. I don't know where I've lost the plot. I jumped the shark. Anyway, people who are heading off to buy that comic are not like listening to, a CG video talk about how, hey, I know you're going to buy that Danny Lore comic, and you really enjoy Danny Lore and what Danny Lore brings, and the idea of the Daughter of Blade is something that gets you really excited. But counterpoint, Danny sucks. That comic sucks, and you're a pussy if you buy that comic. No, that's not happening. And people are like listening to those videos going, holy shit, I was actually going to buy that Danny Lore comic, but now, I have been convinced. I have been a faithful purchaser of Mariko Tamaki and Teenie Howard comic books. But then Yellow Flash came along and he opened my eyes to the fact that Teenie Howard comics suck. And now I won't buy them anymore. That is not happening. There is no changing of the minds. Yellow Flash isn't doing a video. That Umbrella guy is not doing a video about, just fuck if I know about Teenie Howard. And then a bunch of Teenie Howard fans like, well, I love that Teenie Howard, but, that Umbrella guy has convinced me that I should never buy one of those comics again. That's not happening. The people who are listening to those channels already dislike Teenie Howard. And so the guy saying, Teenie Howard's a bitch in a video, I have no idea if either of those two have done that, but let's assume they have. You can complain that they're not, they're annoying. You complain that they're just bitching all the time and all the rest. But one thing you can't complain about is the idea that they are somehow hurting sales in comics because they're convincing people not to read Teenie Howard. That's not happening. Everybody was already convinced. Their audience anyway. So, I mean, it's all about what you define as hurt. I think it's you're playing shoddy pool. You're cheating a little bit if you're taking a small panel and you're blowing it up big size and you're calling that crappy art. I think you're misleading the people you're talking to, for sure. I think that complaining about Vita's influence in comics is absurd to anyone who just pays attention to what's going on. But I think what's the net harm that's done? I don't know. It's annoying. It's bad morale. I think Danny Lore doom scrolls videos about how shitty Danny Lore is Mariko Tamaki like going onto YouTube and I'm so inspired to write a comic book, but after listening to 500 videos by Comicsgate, I no longer have the will to write anymore. That's not happening. I mean, I hope it's not happening. Nobody should be motivated to or demotivated from doing anything by listening to YouTube. That's absurd. I mean, I'm demotivating you to expect good quality from YouTube by my shitty videos, but for the rest of it, I have a hard time believing there's actual harm. Doesn't mean it's good. Doesn't mean it's not annoying. If you're a comic creator, it sure sucks to hear that kind of stuff about you. I get all that. But harm? That's a different bar. And so, I mean, just to put it in perspective, I just think that's, I don't think so. So, but there you go. There's my opinion. Take it or leave it. And thanks for listening.